It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. I'm just back from Foo Camp, the O'Reilly, Friends of O'Reilly confab, and we've got some Foo Camp attendees to talk about the latest trends in tech. It's all coming up next on TWiT.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Audio bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by the new Winamp for Android, featuring wireless sync and one-click iTunes import. Now with free daily music downloads and full-length CD listening parties. Download it for free at winamp.com/Android. Video bandwidth for TWiT is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 305, recorded June 12th, 2011. This one time at Foo Camp. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Go to Assist Express. If you're an IT or software consultant, up your competitive edge and grow your business with Go to Assist Express. For a free 30-day trial, visit gotoassist.com/TWiT. And by Audible.com. Sign up for the Platinum Plan and get 2 free books. Go to audible.com/TWiT2. And don't forget to follow Audible on Twitter. User ID audible_com. And by FreshBooks, the easy online invoicing service that gets you paid quickly and makes you look more professional. Get started with a free package at freshbooks.com. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. And this week is, we should call it Foo TWiT. TWiT Foo, something like that. We're all in studio, and all of our guests today have driven back from Sebastopol, where the O'Reilly media folks just threw their, I think it's, 8th annual Foo Camp.
11.
11?
Foo 11.
Wow. Foo stands for Friends of O'Reilly. Tim O'Reilly, I think you know. We've had him on many times. He's a brilliant thinker, publisher. You've seen his the O'Reilly books. They're the ones with the animals on the cover. Actually, they're more than that, but that's the best-known ones, including the Perl book, Programming Perl, Programming Python, Learning Perl, Learning Python, all the classics. So it's so nice to have Gina Trapani here with us here.
Great
Hi,
to
Gina.
be here. Great to be here. It's my first time in the cottage after doing Twig with you for over a year.
More than a year.
And it's smaller than I thought it would look like.
Yeah,
is that
tiny.
an
It's
insult?
teensy.
It is
No.
kind of teensy, but this is an amazing setup. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Oh,
It's cozy.
We're so glad
It
to
is
have
really
you.
cozy. Great to
Yeah,
be
and
here.
we're building a new place because we really have outgrown this. So it's kind of, this is kind of, in many ways, I think this is kind of fun to do as a kind of almost a last farewell. This, certainly by next Foo Camp, we better be in the new studio. But I'm thinking even sooner, maybe like next month, we'll be in the new studio. So thank you for being here.
Yeah,
It's great to see you.
thrilled to check out the
Our last
original
chance.
cottage.
Of course, Gina is founder of Lifehacker and is at smarterware.org and is the author of ThinkUp at thinkupapp.com, which is a great Twitter analyzer that was used by the White House and a regular on This Week in Google every Wednesday on the TWiT network. Look who's here. ICANN has Ben. He did it for the lulls. Ben Huff from
Oh, yeah, the shirt.
Cheeseburger. ICANN has Cheeseburger and Fail Blog, and you just acquired Andrew Barron's. Yeah, I did it for the lulls.
There you go.
That's actually dangerous to wear these days because of lulsec. You realize that?
Yeah, I might get arrested on the way back.
They might think
they might pull you over.
that you hacked Sony or something.
Yeah, I actually hacked the shirt.
Actually, for all we know, you did hack. You looked. Did you hack Sony?
Based on what our experiences have been last night, whatever I tell you, you're not going to trust me anyway.
Are you a werewolf?
I am.
He is so a werewolf.
We'll talk about werewolf in a second, but it's great to have you, Ben. His newest acquisition is Know Your Meme, Andrew Barron's great site for finding out what the hot meme is right now, and it's video, right?
And there's a video component, but actually, we were really excited about the site because of its history and its research into memes and internet culture.
And you are a meme because, of course, ICANN has Cheeseburger is probably the longest running, appallingly horrible internet meme out there. I'm not a cheeseburger guy.
I know. You're more.
I don't
of a
even
fail
like
blog guy.
cats. I'm a fail blog guy.
Yeah.
I like to see sadness and dismay and horror, not happy cats.
I get it. That's cool. I know many people like you.
Ben is great.
I know you're kind.
Ben is great. He and Marshall Kirkpatrick of Read Write Web and others are looking at reinventing news.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we'll talk about that. That's really exciting.
Nothing to do with fail blog.
Yeah, is that funny?
Yeah, no.
At first I thought, what is he up to? What are you What are you up to? You're up to something. You're up to no good. Anyway, it's great to see Ben. Ben's been on before on our Social Hour show. We've talked to you, but it's great to have you.
Thanks.
And this is kind of funny because returning from Foo Camp, like he did last year, Dan Shapiro's with us. Now, last year, you were doing something you couldn't tell anybody about, which you called, I think at the time, the kayak of consumer electronics.
And that was actually more than I'd said to anyone at any time about that, so your listeners get the first...
You opened the kimono.
Lead.
Since then, that company was started and sold to Google, yes or no?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Now, that's what I call turnaround.
Yeah.
Less than a year.
I love it. Efficiency.
So officially now you're at Google.
I am.
But we won't ask you about Google because Google doesn't know you're here.
Because I still have no idea what I'm doing.
Lean into the mic when we talk, but it's good to have you back, Dan. And Dan is a really great serial entrepreneur and has a number of other very interesting investments, which we should talk about because some really interesting stuff. That's one of the things at Food Camp that happens is people go around and say, "What did you learn? What did you see any interesting new startups or ideas?" Joining us a little later, Kevin Marks will be here. He'll wander in. And we're going to, I think, let Ben go in a little bit because a lot of folks have to fly out. But it's just so nice to get some of the brains over here. Gina, this is your 8th Food Camp.
I don't know if it's 8th. Maybe
Manyth.
5th.
This is your
6th.
manyth.
It's my manyth. I've been to Foo and I've been to Foo East. I've been any day that I get the Foo invitation is a lovely day. There have been years that I haven't been invited. It's hard talking about Foo, because
You feel a little elitist.
it is, and I saw some chatter on Twitter about it being sort of the nerd elite, and there's this feeling of exclusion. At least I felt very excluded when I wasn't invited.
But it's not the elite. It's not elitist in the sense that TED is, for instance.
No, it's a different feel.
For one thing, it's not a conference, and you can't pay to get in. I guess then someone
Right, there's no money.
There's no money
involved.
exchange. You are invited or not.
You're invited or not, and you can sleep on the floor.
And it's not
if you
done.
choose.
It's not done to invite yourself, to
Right.
beg, to plead, to say, "Can I come back?"
It is done, not successfully.
Right, it's not right.
It's discouraged.
Exactly.
So what is it?
Well, it's an unconference, meaning that the sessions aren't planned.
I think it's the original unconference.
I believe it is, and it kind of spawned the bar camp movement as well.
Because people who weren't invited. Foo said, "Oh, well, we're going to do our own thing, which is bar."
Right.
Although Tim has said that he loves the idea of bar camp. He doesn't mind.
Yeah, no, he doesn't mind.
Tim-like.
It is
Yeah.
very Tim-like. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the thing about Tim. Like, not only is he a great thinker and leader in our community, he's a tribe leader. He's very much he recognizes the geeks. He has lots of great connections, and the whole point of Foo is to get people together he thinks who should talk in a place to talk.
So an unconference means that you don't go with, you aren't a speaker and a attendee. There are no divisions like that.
Right.
Everybody is invited to speak,
Right.
kind of ad hoc in a very informal way. Mm-hmm. And then really even the sessions are not kind of hierarchical. They're
Not
very
at all.
egalitarian.
That's what I love about it. You don't have a speaker in the front of the room like wah, 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 with attendees kind of dozing off or on their laptops. I mean, at this Foo, and I don't know if you guys felt the same way, I mean, there are very few people on their devices during discussions. People were fully focused and arguing. There's a lot of arguing. In fact,
In part because
Ben
there's no
was giving me-
reception in Sebastopol, but
Yeah, well, it probably did
But I
have to do with
remember
that. It's
last
true.
year that
Wi-Fi.
everybody had iPad, or not everybody. There were a number of people had iPads, but very few people had any
Very few
electronics
this year.
at all this
Yeah.
time. And they discourage that. They don't want people to be
Yeah,
doing that. They want you to pay attention.
Yeah, they outwardly encouraged us to be present.
On
Whatever
the
that
other
means.
hand, the people who are there, and Tim said this time there was about 35% new people, so about a third of the people were new. But the people who are there are kind of a big deal in many cases. Marissa Mayer was there. She showed up last night. Apparently, you missed it when Larry Page flew his helicopter into the...
Oh, if you look at Google Maps and you zoom in to the O'Reilly offices from like the satellite view,
I was at
you'll
that
notice
Foo.
that there's a large patch of really high definition like
Tents.
campground tents. And you're like, why is that there? And everything else is blurry. And that's
Yeah.
because they shot it from their helicopter from what I heard.
They did a flyover one year when they were doing the Google Maps photography. I think I was asleep under a desk when that happened as well, but I was on site because I'd stayed up too late playing Werewolf.
And also, it's a reoccurring theme.
It
isn't
is. It is a reoccurring theme.
Yeah.
As Gina and I were talking, this is the only time really you get to play. Where do you play? You never get to play any other time, do you, Ben?
Well, I do.
Do you play in your
actually.
office?
Actually, we do. At game nights at our company, we
This
play.
explains a lot.
Yeah, he's really
I
good
play
at it.
everywhere I go. Like I did it at South by Southwest. We hijacked a couple of conference rooms in the middle of the night from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. and it turned out to be a pretty big event. So
Ben pretty much made a total fool of me during Werewolf. I mean, not only was it like lessons in extrovertism, it was also like lessons in taking out Gina or engineering a way to take out Gina in the first to second round. It was kind of amazing.
It wasn't me all the time.
Well, you were in cahoots with Harper, basically.
Well, Harper's just crazy anyway.
Yeah, he is just crazy.
So that's a perfect example. Harper is in charge of digital strategy for the Obama campaign, or President Obama.
Yeah, Barack Obama's CTO.
Yeah, just appointed.
Vivek Kundra was also there.
Yep.
CTO of the United States.
The U.S. CTO.
Oh, CIO.
So to sit there and be playing werewolf with the CTO of the United States of America is pretty bizarre. And by the way, you and he are like trying to kill each other, and I mean it's hysterical.
I didn't know who he was, so half the time, so half the time I don't even know who I'm killing.
Yeah,
and that's the fun of it. And later I find out, it's like, oh, well, that was the funny thing at South by. It was like we're playing werewolf, and a bunch of entrepreneurs, they're getting more and more into it, and they're literally screaming at the venture capitalists who they're trying to get money from, and calling them idiots and morons. And you see the whole dynamic play out, and you're like, well, that's the bed you made.
So here's the image of Foo Camp from Google Maps, and if you zoom in, you can see that this is what happens. Is that this is the O'Reilly Media headquarters. This is their offices, and people camp. I camped this year. Gina, are you going to point out your tent, Ben? I see you.
No, but look at how high def that is.
Yeah,
yeah.
And the rest of
they
it.
know they did a really
here,
close flyby.
Oh,
where are we?
Somebody laying down.
You can't tell.
No, if you go to the right. Over there, keep going.
That's a little soccer field where there are robots.
Yeah,
spelled out Google or foo or something.
That was a robot soccer game in the upper left-hand corner.
What are these people doing?
Yeah, they knew that. Yeah, that those are robots right there. Wow. Yeah, and I feel like if you go down, I thought somebody made like a Google AdSense.
Welcome to Foo Camp.
Yeah.
That's hysterical. Apparently, there's one guy off in a tent over on the side here, just by himself.
There's always that guy.
One of the things that's interesting about going to a conference like this, which is really fairly social, is that most of us are,
with the exception of Ben,
are pretty introverted, and so
I don't understand your accusation here.
I second.
Yeah.
Introvert
and there's a vote. Yeah.
Extrovert. Actually, that's the game next year. We should play introvert extrovert. That would be kind of fun. You're awfully quiet. I think you're an extrovert.
Yeah.
All right, we're making in jokes. That's a bad sign. Anyway, Friends of O'Reilly is what FOO stands for, and it is. I think it's a great thing that O'Reilly does, because it is a rare chance for people like Vivek Kundra to let their hair down, to hang out with entrepreneurs, people who are doing creative stuff in the nonprofit space, and really exchange ideas in a free fashion.
There's a foo bar also.
This is true.
This must be mentioned.
BAR as in drinks.
As in drinks,
yeah.
But it's labeled the foo bar. So.
I was drinking. Baratunde and I were drinking absinthe last night. Absinthe, did you know, makes the heart grow fonder, and discussing. This is what Baratunde's session was on. Utopia versus dystopia. Is the world about to end, or is technology going to save us all? And it's this great. We're standing there holding absinthe and drinking and discussing this, and it's like going to college again.
Leo, it's entirely possible you had that. You imagine the whole thing.
That was after the absinthe.
Yeah.
Actually, Baratunde wasn't there at all. Was he?
I didn't even know who that guy is.
So Leo was standing next to a tree talking to me last night for about an hour.
See that tent off in the corner? That's me, and I enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
Well, one of the best sessions was it had Tim O'Reilly, you had Nick Bilton from the New York Times, and you had Vivek Kundra, who's our CIO. Talking about privacy.
Incredible.
And Tim was talking about how he lives in public and thinks it's underrated. You had
and
Nick,
I'm in that obviously that group.
You had Nick talking about, good heavens, the companies are pimping out our privacy information to everybody. What's being done about this? And you had Vivek furiously taking notes and asking really smart questions, and you know where that's going.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Isn't that exciting?
Absolutely.
Tim said, I kind of like what Tim said, which is essentially that. Yes, we have problems with privacy. In fact, and it's the very nature of technology that all this, you should just assume all this information is going to leak out or get out or somehow be figured out. So the real issue is not to legislate again, in draconian fashion to kind of protect us, but to do what we've always done with privacy, which is to set standards and mores and taboos about privacy. So we have Windows, we all have Windows, but it's so taboo to come up to somebody's window and look in that we don't do it. It's actually against the law, but it's even the taboo. Everybody has locks, but a lock is more. In fact, this was another great session I took on lock cracking.
Yeah.
Even locks are just a symbol of please don't come in here because they're easily circumvented. Right. And so Tim said we don't want a chilling effect from legislation saying companies, for instance, I think Nick suggested there should be a standard security model so that things like the PlayStation Network don't happen, that every company that holds consumer data should by law require to use this standard security model. And Tim said, well, then you've anointed a winner. There's not going to be any innovation in that space. You have a very chilling effect by doing this. Yes, maybe people are a little more secure, but probably not. And what you really should do is you should figure out where is the harm in privacy violation. What is the harm? Not every privacy violation is harmful. Don't assume there are harmful.
So let's take that case and talk about the girl who made her birthday party public by accident in Germany with 1,500 people showing up.
On Facebook, she invited people.
That's right. Well, she made it open, 1,500 people RSVP'd, or 15,000 people, some crazy number. The harm on that, like how do you quantify the harm in that?
I would say the harm is de minimis, that she had to move her party.
Right. She had to hire security. The police showed up.
No, she didn't have. No. Well, that's dumb. She shouldn't have had the party at the same place. She should have moved it.
Well, people showed up anyway, right? It's their house.
Oh, she gave out her house. Yeah. Okay, that was kind of dumb. But it should. I mean, that's a foolish thing to do.
Right.
And are you saying it was too easy?
I'm saying development of software needs to reflect the societal norms of what privacy is in order for what you're suggesting to work.
Right. How about Andrew Weiner? Let's talk about Andrew Weiner.
How can we?
No, but I'm just saying that was a dumb thing to do with some harm for him. And if you are an Andrew Weiner fan, for you.
The name Weiner just is too good for this.
But that was his mistake.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just like it was her mistake, it was his mistake. So what are we going to legislate?
No, the interesting thing here is when you have products that, for example, disclose a whole bunch of information to people or hide information poorly, and then, this is one of the examples we were talking about in the session, you have something like the Burmese junta or the Chinese government mining all this available information. Think of it another way, which is, yes, we have windows. No, you shouldn't look in them. But imagine if the entire government of Burma or China can look in your window, take notes on everything you do, and you'll never know they were there. And that's where it starts to get a little fuzzy because, yes, you make silly mistakes, your life leaks a little bit, and you can say that's up to you. But the problems here are life-threatening in some cases, real, and there are enemies. Yeah. There are bad people out there who want your personal data. That
actually was Nick's point, was that we're all good people in this room, so we're assuming everybody's good, but there are bad actors who will use this data in a bad way. Well, you can see why this is a challenge. I mean, I'm on Tim's side, but you've raised some issues.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion.
The problem is that privacy used to be a gradient, meaning that if somebody came to your house and actually took a photo of what's happening inside, there was no place for them to actually post it, make it public, that would go basically binary all over the world. Now, privacy is binary. Either you have it or you don't, right? The moment you post a photo that's out in public, you can never take it back, right? And that's the problem with privacy, is that we've come to this extremist world.
While we were sitting in one of the sessions actually talking about all this, this news crossed the wire, and probably somebody should have mentioned it and brought it up because it's an interesting story. The United States is underwriting a detour around censors.
Oh, that's right.
The Obama administration has agreed to help deploy shadow internet and mobile phone systems for dissidents in repressive areas. So that, I mean, I kind of applaud this. At the same time, it's kind of an interesting idea. The effort includes secretive projects to create independent cell phone networks inside foreign countries. I guess this is, you know what, this is better than military intervention. This is maybe even better than having a spy network. Support the resistance.
Well, isn't that what we, did in Afghanistan back when? And isn't that what we've done in all sorts of really upsetting military situations? Does it work the same way for communications, or is it different?
Down so that I don't have to pay overage minutes on my cell phone?
No, you are paying overage minutes forever.
Okay. That's probably what funds this, right? Okay.
The funny thing is it was $2 million. It was a $2 million State Department grant. I mean, it's not even that expensive. Yeah. But an interesting policy decision. Would you say, based on the fact that Harper was there and Vivek Kundra was there, that we have a government that is technically more savvy? And
I think you have politicians who are coming from the technology age. I think I would say Barack Obama.
Finally.
Finally. Barack Obama being able to use the internet during the campaign was a massive, massive advancement in government understanding technology. But from what I can hear about the political structure and how campaigns work, they're still very, very much in the dark ages as to how the internet works.
Well, Gov 2.0 was one of Tim O'Reilly's big interests, and there was a big presence from Code for America. I think there's a big focus on civic hacking.
What is Code for America?
Code for America is a nonprofit organization that make of fellows basically who get paid very little to do some civic hacking, which means to build tools, software tools that companies have, but to give those to government, open data and tools that help citizens help themselves.
They call it a new kind of public service, and this is what kind of Tim has talked about. We've actually did a special on Government 2.0. You can go back to our TWiT specials feed and read all about it with Tim. But one of the things that Tim was talking about is the idea of a government as, and this is very 21st century, a platform as, just as Facebook would be a platform,
right,
or Windows would be a platform for people to write software that makes government work better.
Exactly. Be more efficient.
To do that, you need APIs into the
Open data, APIs, and hackers who are willing to spend time to build tools that make things easier for citizens to help themselves and help one another.
So this is really the Code for America is one part of the tripod, the hackers, but you also need to get APIs and open data.
One of the neat things I think about the way this is being done is back in the age, this would have been a $100 million contract to some large consultancy. But there's really cool companies. There's a company called Socrata up in Seattle, for example. Startups, small companies that are getting small pieces of access to this data and then using that to grow and make more information available to the greater public. And that's something that I think that partnership with entrepreneurialism that is also an exciting feature that we're seeing now.
Definitely.
And what was interesting is that you get to recognize patterns. You get to recognize what's actually happening in the technology world, what people are thinking about. And as you see all the Code for America fellows who were there, and somebody came up to me, and I forgot who it was, and said, wow, it's like Code for America is the new Facebook.
Yeah.
And there was this kind of palpable, like,
wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah. That was pretty amazing.
Although everyone not from the U.S., there were quite a few international attendees. My roommate was from New Zealand. She pulled me aside and said, "What's all this for America stuff?"
she thought we were really like ultra-nationalists.
Yeah, she did. She did.
It was actually a meme, but it was a joke meme.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It was pretty funny because all the Brits were saying, "Hi, I am from whatever for America."
Sly mocking.
Yes.
So Colin, who is one of our newest employees, he came from Philadelphia. He pointed out this site. This is opendataphilly.org. And the data on the Philadelphia region is plentiful. Search and find that data with Open Data Philly. It gives you a chance to scrape and get information. There's an API, a Scraper Wiki API, SQLite database. That's kind of cool. That's kind of neat. One of the big things I saw, and you're right, Ben. You start to see threads come through all of the sessions. You can see that this is what these people anyway, and I think if these people are representative of the people who are really doing some interesting thinking globally, and I think Tim does really make an effort to do that, that these threads are important because these are not just here, but what everybody's thinking. One of them is big data.
Yeah.
And what we can do with big data. What is big data, Gina?
Huge, large aggregate sets of data that can give us insights into behaviors and make life better through those insights. I guess, I don't know.
It used to be basically called data mining, because if you had a huge set of data, you would go look for nuggets of information that's actually useful. Right. What's happened is in the last 10 years, the amount of data has exploded where data mining no longer is actually the right way to look at it, right? You don't mine for little things out of it. You look at the large aggregate data set and see what comes out of it that can power your entire business.
Right.
The other thing that's happened is it used to be the only way that you had big data was a large company would go and have the data on its customers and its functions, but there was no access to small companies, to individuals, to government data. Now we're actually entering an age where anybody can go access massive data sets across different disciplines, bring them together, and build something new out of that. Well, and finally, the walls are coming down around some of those data stores.
And I think that's the interesting part, is that the walls are absolutely coming down. So it used to be that you were siloed in your data set, that you could actually only mine the data that you had, and to get other people's data to work nicely with you was really hard. But now data works really nicely almost across every single social and internet company in the globe.
There was a huge emphasis on just measuring everything. I mean, geeks are just enamored with data.
Measuring and visualizing.
Measuring and visualizing. So, I mean, fitness was actually another, geek fitness was another big theme. And a lot of that was just like getting the metrics, the devices that measure your heart rate and your steps, the steps taken and your sleep, like the Fitbit and the...
Weight and
Yeah,
And
that was
I
a big...
talked to one of the guys I talked to, Jason there, who is runkeeper.com.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy.
They announced an API. They call it the health graph. For they've been keeping people's run data for some time. Now they want to keep all your health data in an open database with an open API. Have all these devices write to it, because when you know what your heart rate is and what your running was and your stress level was and maybe your cholesterol level and how much you slept, and you can collate all that data, you can see you can learn a lot about yourself.
Learn a lot.
So
The
here's another
quantified
thing
self.
that's happening is that APIs is a method of accessing data, and the reason we have APIs is that we're a very limited pipe and connection in which we could access other people's data. Imagine a world where the pipes are cheaper, the data storage is cheaper. You don't need an API anymore.
Why not? How do you access it? You just get
it's available.
a dump?
It's just there, right? It's constantly just being there. Right?
I
It's not
see.
request based.
So this was the issue with Twitter, was that they would never let anybody have the fire hose, which you, of course, would love, Gina, which is everything. You have to buy it.
Right.
But so they gave you an API so you could ask for stuff.
Right.
But wouldn't
Right.
you
It's
rather have
request-based. It's a limited resource.
You'd like
It
to have the
is.
dump, the whole thing.
The reality of using the Twitter API now is that you request a page of 200 tweets, kind of one at a time on the poll API, and it is really limiting, right? So you're talking about a time where we could, query the entire Twitter database. I mean, even
I
Twitter
don't think
puts
it's even a
tweets.
query. Like it's just there.
You
It's
have
there.
the
You
data.
just have it. It's just part of
yeah,
the
exactly.
Right.
And this was
right.
actually an issue for my previous short-lived company, SparkBuy, where we were trying to make it really easy to go and find the best consumer electronics item, answer questions like, what's a great red Dell laptop that's Photoshop compatible? And we wanted to go and we wanted to know everything that was on Amazon. But because they would only give us API access, because they'd say you can only talk to us once a second.
That's right.
You have to ask every time, not the raw dump. We had to jump through a lot of hurdles in order to make that work. So companies are coming to terms with the balance between you can have everything and no, we're just going to drip feed you. And I think that's an ongoing evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So APIs at some point are going to be overtaken by something else that's going to allow us fire hose and just consistent, always on persistent access to data from our partners.
Ben Ha is here. He is the CEO of cheeseburger.com. I can has cheeseburger.
It's really weird when I say stuff like that and then you say my title and my company. It doesn't quite mesh.
Your choice, man.
This is what I love about Ben. He can be the hugest goofball in the whole world, which I witnessed last night at 3 in the morning while he was, killing me in Werewolf. And then you go to a session with the guy, and he's all smart and stuff. Crazy. He's all smart
I
and
love
serious.
to undersell.
It's actually really cool.
It's the glasses.
It's really cool.
It's the glasses.
And actually, that's one of the best parts about Food Camp. You see the full person as opposed to just, their
Also,
corporate.
Ben on beer is an experience.
A loud experience.
I don't know.
Yes.
I think that's friend D8. I hate to say.
Sorry.
You see me at any conference in the middle of the night, you'll know exactly what Gina's talking about.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. We're playing werewolf. We can't tell if Ben's a werewolf because he seems to be asleep. He didn't wake up with the rest of the villagers. His head was just on the table. But he woke up eventually and killed us all, which was kind of annoying, frankly. To be killed by a drunk werewolf is just even more humiliating.
Very dramatically, standing on the table, paws up.
I kill you. Anyway, as I was saying, Ben Ha is here. In fact, Ben wants to reinvent how we read news, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. It's a neat project, and he wants your help, which is even neater. I like that a lot. Also, Gina Trapani, of course, from This Week in Google and smarterware.org. Dan Shapiro. Should I say from Google? What should I say?
From Google.
From Google.
As
I
of
love
2
it.
weeks ago.
What is your title at Google? What are you doing?
Product
what is
manager
that?
with some adjectives and decoration on top of
Neat.
it. So working on
Because they acquired your company.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. As of 2 weeks ago,
But Dan
working
is-
on figuring out what I'm doing.
And also, a serial entrepreneur and an investor in a lot of interesting startups, which we will talk about, too, in just a little bit. But before we do that, I'd just like to mention our good friends at Citrix, who make a product that everyone who is in support ought to know about and ought to be using. Of course, I'm talking about Go to Assist Express. We started using it on the screensavers back when it was just Go to Assist. It was kind of cool on TV, solve people's... It was a neat segment we would do. Most of the time it would be a phone call, and we'd talk you through it. And every once in a while we could actually say, okay, we're going to fire up Go to Assist and get into your computer. Well, that was almost 10 years ago. They've come a long way. And it was good then, and it is even better now. Citrix, because they do the great back end for remote access on Windows machines, both for enterprise and consumers. It's just They're just the best. 128-bit SSL, great 24/7 support for you. If you are an IT or software consultant and you have clients and colleagues who need to be supported, this is the easiest way to do it. Much better than phone support. Certainly a lot better than traveling across the world, across the country, even just walking down the hall. We always knew when the IT guy at Tech TV was coming because he wore a keychain with a lot of keys on it, and you'd hear him go, ching, 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 coming down the hall. It wasn't Santa. Usually he was there to yell at you. You can do it yourself. What do you mean you put chocolate in the keyboard? I seem to have a big problem with that. You could do this yourself, remote support. It's just the easiest way to do it, and you can do up to 8 sessions simultaneously, unattended sessions, just all the features that a support pro is looking for. Drag and drop of files from your computer to the supportee's computer, whether they're hot fixes or patches or installs. It's just so easy. You can even show them your computer, say, this is what it's supposed to look like, dude. You can get an assay of what software is running, including all the security software, what operating system version, and I can go on and on. But you know what? Better than that, try it. Free for 30 days. PC or Mac, visit gotoassist.com, gotoassist.com/twit. We love Citrix. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech and all of our Twit shows. So, Ben, tell us, because I know you're going to leave in about 5 or 10 minutes, what is Moby Dick?
So the Moby Dick project was an idea that came from actually Foo Camp and ORD Camp, where we talked about what's wrong with the way news articles are presented today. And the problem that we see is that, one, the article format's been around since like the 1800s, and so basically we've been consuming the same news product for hundreds of years, and that has led to just being ported to the web, the way people think about articles. So imagine a breaking news story, let's say the Japan earthquake, and you read the same article over and over again when they update the first paragraph, and halfway through the article you're going, hey, haven't I read this before?
I read this, yeah.
And it's a real waste of your time. Second, the collective social memory of front pages of newspapers. If you walk down the halls of the New York Times, you'll see these collection of amazing historical moments that you no longer see because the internet just wipes everything clean every time. Right. And it's hard for you to get that. It is possible, but it's very difficult for you.
Well, easier than paper. I mean, to get the paper, you have to go to a library or go to their archive.
But at least it's available, and at least we remember it. And when we actually remember those moments, it's a part of who we are. Imagine, what did the newspaper look like when you were born in your hometown? Right. Those are really interesting memories that you will never get on the internet.
Just a point. You can get it now, but if it's on the net, it doesn't.
It's hard to find. The newspapers don't organize it themselves. You actually don't know how news forms over time.
Right.
And third, I think there's not enough diversity of opinion in the way news is presented. There's a handful of large media outlets, and they try to be quote-unquote unbiased, but what's happening is they have a bias, you just don't know
hidden.
it. Yeah, it's very hidden. We should be transparent about it. We should say what the bias is.
So this is not a company that you want to start.
No.
This isn't a service you want to provide.
Yeah, it's a new way of thinking about journalism I'd like other journalists to consider. I would love to actually have an open source software project that handles these features.
You've proposed a WordPress style software.
Yes. We're big users of WordPress at Cheeseburger, and we love what they did with the open source platform and how they've been able to build a community out of it, and we would love for them or others to help us take the lead.
So you did a little mock-up. This is what you showed at Foo Camp. It's kind of a wireframe. You want to give us a little tour. So first of all, it's got tags up at the top.
That's right. So the tag is actually provided by the users, and
this is like a Wikipedia almost.
A little bit. So it's edited by a handful of people who work on this page and about this topic. So
there are selected editors for the page.
Well, you self-select. You want to create a page, you can do it yourself.
So how is this different from a Wikipedia topic? I mean, Wikipedia has great breaking news coverage, actually.
It does, but it doesn't help you scrub, and it also doesn't provide you with the details as it's going on. So
scrub in the sense that I can run through history and
it does provide you revisions, but it's more technical.
Yeah.
And also, this is not about facts. This is not about the actuality. You can insert opinion. You can insert perspective. You can insert basically.
So there's a place in it for facts, but also a place in it for opinion.
Yes.
So on the left, that's the facts.
Right. So here you have a mock-up of a page with a headline that's probably from the pro-revolutionary side. you could potentially actually have a government-centric voice that says, you know what, those are rebels, they're just criminals.
Interesting.
And which you heard out of Egypt. And I know that it seems awkward and weird to actually encourage diversity of opinion when you believe the other side is false, but I want to trust the public to make that opinion for themselves, not to be filtered purely by journalists.
So on this page, would you have on the other side of the page the pro-Egyptian government?
Well, actually, what's interesting about this page is that if you scroll to the right, so the left has the facts, the middle and it has media. I'm using the entire the 1080 space, and if you move to the right, there's unconfirmed stream of tips and news that's coming in, where the crowd actually helps you sort and.
So you have karma, you have plus and minus.
That's
you
right.
can write
Commentary on the far right, and in the middle you'll see this bar that says credible opinion. Speculation. So on top of that block, you'll see that you can actually vote on something.
So you could say this is speculation. This is opinion.
And if you click on it, you can actually say why it's speculation.
That's fantastic. And so the theory is, if enough people use this, the crowdsource. I mean, I believe in the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are problems with the crowd. You look at Dig, for instance, and the crowd can be gamed. The crowd can be wrong.
Yeah.
But you trust them to do something like this.
I would trust the crowd to be no more smarter than being able to pick our own leaders. Which is to say,
which is what they do.
Which is to say that we are able to run ourselves. Right. And if that's the case, why not news?
Run our news.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
There's an important factoid here I think people should know, which is that in addition to being a world-renowned cat genealogy and morphology expert, Ben's actually a closet journalist.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a degree from Medill.
And knows what he's doing in this space.
Did you ever work as a journalist?
I interned. I interned for the Oregonian, the Sun Sentinel in Florida, and the Times-Picayune down in New Orleans.
And you decided you didn't want to be one because?
Well, when I graduated, it was 1999, and .coms were handing out signing bonuses like chocolate candy to kids.
And you knew how to program?
Actually, sort of. I knew how to work with HTML.
You knew how to fake it?
I knew enough.
Which is much more important.
Yes, as we'll all learn in life.
Fake it till you make it. Yeah. Good. So what can people do if they, I mean, this is an interesting idea. There's a write-up on it on Read Write Web. Marshall Kirkpatrick, who was at the Foo Camp with us at this session, wrote an article about it. So
we're looking for journalists as well as technologists and especially UI designers, and we're thinking about putting together a working session.
Is it a UI problem, you think?
I think I want to think about this outside of the scope of journalism. I want to think about information, not how journalists think.
That's
and I want us to actually try to kind of get out of that. Every time I've gone to a journalism conference, it's been very difficult for them to get out of the problem of, oh my God, journalism is no longer paying the bills. What do we do? Let's stop talking about that. Let's talk about progress. What do we have to do next to save journalism? Right. Really? So email me, benhuh@gmail.com. benhuh@gmail.com. Yeah.
Really? 400 million page views a month on your sites?
500 now, I think.
Jeez Louise. Holy cow.
Nice.
Holy cats.
Holy cats.
Holy
what
cats.
Is it? It's not just cats, though. You have other animals, right?
Well, Failblog, the human animal.
The human animal. Yeah.
Yeah. And Meme Base, which is all about memes.
Right.
Yeah.
And my personal favorite, There I Fixed It.
Yes, which just the book came out of all the fix-it projects that people never quite finished to the level.
Quite got right.
Is this a variation on Failblog?
It is. It's a section of Failblog.
It's called Redneck Repairs. There I Fixed It. At the thereifixedit.failblog.org.
Yeah. You know, the news conversation happens at Foo pretty much every year. There's some sort of how do we save journalism? What do we do about news?
Foo, and they even had a Foo News camp earlier this year in Arizona. Yeah.
And what I liked about your session about this was that you're presenting a possible solution. I really like that.
Lamenting about the loss.
Well, right, which is what most of the sessions have been like so far. Paywalls suck. Journalism's dying. What do we do? And this is something. This is a solution.
Actually, that was one of the things that was pretty encouraging about Foo Camp in general. Is that it was really about solutions. It wasn't about.
It was.
It's so easy for geeks to say it all sucks. It was better, before the regular people came, whatever. And it really didn't go there.
No, not at all.
And I like talking about like a balanced information diet. Balancing both facts and opinion at the same time, which is another session I went to as well, talking about that. Yeah.
So I've got to run, but thank you so much.
Ben, I'm glad we could give you a plug for There I Fixed It and for your new Moby Dick project. People want to know more. benhuh@gmail.com. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, guys. Have fun.
We fooled you, everybody. They thought the red shirt guy was going to get it. But no, Ben Huh was the werewolf all this time. Take care. So nice. Thank you for coming down, Ben. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we can say it now that he's gone, but you don't expect him to be a smart guy.
No, you don't. No, you kind of don't.
He's kind of shocking. It's like, wow, this guy's pretty amazing, pretty cool. Mark Zuckerberg. You know, a lot of famous, CEOs will give college commencement addresses, that kind of thing. Zuck spoke to 8th graders at the Bellhaven Community School in Menlo Park to commemorate their...
That attitude of I can, I will, in order to come as far as he has.
Listen to the kids' voices.
This is a young man who not too long ago was at his middle school sitting on a seat just like yours. His head full of dreams and not knowing where it was going to lead him to.
I love the little kid voices.
That it has led him to our community. And very soon he will be our neighbor. This young man...
By the way, that's what this is all about, that Facebook's moving to Menlo Park.
Changed the way the world communicates.
I know he's thinking, get on with it. I just want to talk and get the hell out of here. Hurry up.
And he did it because
yeah, lady.
I can and I will.
It's sunny. I'm sweating.
So without further ado, I'd like to
I should have wear the
present to
flower
you
flip-flops
Mr.
today,
Mark Zuckerman,
the shower
founder
flip-flops.
and CEO of Facebook, Mr. Z.
I think she said Zuckerman.
Did she say Zuckerman?
I think she introduced him as Zuckerman.
Mark Zuckerman. You know him, you love him.
CEO of Bookface.
It's kind of cute.
Unreal.
Unreal.
Thank you, Principal Ibarra, for having me today. And congratulations to all the 8th graders at Bellhaven for your promotion.
I think that's kind of... I bet you Mark feels very comfortable with that group. It's like, he said there are no shortcuts to success. A lot of building a company or a product like Facebook is just about determination and believing you can. Everything that's worth doing is actually pretty hard. That's kind of good. That's kind of something you don't hear people say very often. Great relationships are the most important thing. Focus on building great things with people that you love. No one ever does anything alone. Great friendships make life fun and meaningful. I think that's true. And do what you love, which is probably the best message you can give.
And don't believe anything you saw in the movie.
And the movie was a lie. Those sons of bitches, they lied. I'd love he loses it. No. If you love what you do, you'll power through adversity. It's a lot easier to focus on challenges that you actually really enjoy doing. I think that's kind of cool.
Sweet.
Yeah. And Alexa Tsotsits, writing for TechCrunch, points out that "there's no shortcuts" is grammatically incorrect. So don't.
As is Zuckerman.
As is Zuckerman, and Bookface. I love it. Actually, this is kind of interesting. We were in Sebastopol, and the folks who do some of our, we're going to be doing our bandwidth at the TWiT Cottage, who will be charging us, I think actually fairly good rate. I think somewhere around $1,000 for 35 megabits symmetric, which is kind of stunning since that's what a T1 cost not so very long ago. Are putting in gigabit fiber in Sebastopol, and they're going to charge for those speeds $70 a month.
Wow.
Do you want to move?
Can Tim serve big data over those pipes directly from the O'Reilly tents?
I don't know if that does that scale. I don't know. Dane Jasper, we've had on before. He's the CEO of SonicNet. Says it's a trial. It's going to reach about 700 homes. But he says, I do believe that service that fast for a low cost is possible, is doable. So, well done, Dane. SonicNet's a really nice little company, actually. But they don't serve much to the people listening today. So every time I talk about bandwidth, there's always somebody in Sweden who says, you know, we have 100 megabits symmetric for $14.19. And I go, thank you, I know. But they're getting me back, you know. It's Spotify.
They also have to eat lutefisk.
They have to eat lutefisk.
Wait, no, that's the Norwegians.
No, I don't know.
And they don't get the U.S.-only new Google
That's
features.
really what it is. They don't get all that U.S.-only stuff. They don't get Netflix.
They didn't have Google Voice for years.
Yeah, so that's really, they're getting me back. We have Spotify. Do you have Spotify? No, I don't have Spotify. iTunes Match. Apple had a little bit of a press conference keynote this week. That WWDC was on Monday. Isn't it hard to believe that was this week?
I said to Eileen, "What's the news this week?" WWDC. Oh, that was this week.
Yeah.
Right, that was this week. It feels so long
E3
ago.
was this week. We've been on another planet for the last 3 days. Yeah. So some more details coming about iCloud, and in particular iTunes Match. iTunes Match is the service that allows you to, in iTunes, say, you know, I have this. Can you make a copy available on my iCloud for $25 a year? So interesting article in the on the Infinite Loop column. Chris Forsman writing in the Ars Technica website. He says iTunes Match will let you mirror up to, get this, what is it? What is Google? 20,000? It's 20,000 songs on Google Music. I think it is.
Yeah, that's
25,000 for it. It's like they, yeah, we got you 25,000. How about that, Google?
See you one, raise you one.
It's just a coincidence, right? 25,000 tracks in your iCloud. The songs can be pulled down, downloaded to any iPhone, iPod Touch, or iPad, as well as synced with Macs or PCs running iTunes. This includes tracks that you have ripped from your CDs or downloaded from the internet, even those you've obtained in a less than legal manner. So actually, I think this was the. I'm just channeling Steve Jobs, but I could see him going into the music executives' offices saying, "Dudes, we figure out a way for you to make money on pirated music." And I bet you Apple's giving most of this money back to them, right? You know, so they can do the service. Dude. Yeah,
at that price, there's not much money there.
Yeah.
That's got to be going back to
the but I think the record company, if they get $25 a year from all the pirates, they're happy. They'd written that off the books anyway by now.
Right, that was more than $0.
More than zero.
I actually thought the most interesting thing just was the news that snuck out after WWDC, which was about the subscription pricing. Did you hear about this?
They're going to do that?
So there was this big thing about subscriptions if you wanted to do a subscription, it was actually really something. So
the news iPad subscriptions.
Yep.
Yes.
You had to pay 30% to Apple, and you couldn't price it any higher than any other source. And this was the death knell to a lot of publishers who just couldn't afford to take their thin margins and lop 30% off.
And we were screaming about it. I mean, it seemed like such a stupid thing for Apple to do. It seemed like such a grab. And they backed down.
Complete about face.
Somebody tweeted me and said, "See, Leo, maybe you'll think about this next time you whine about Apple's policies." And I had to tweet back, dude, if people hadn't complained, do you think Apple would have backed down?
Nothing changes.
They backed down because people whined.
Yep.
They tried to get away with it, and they didn't. So it's interesting. I mean, they obviously pay attention to that. I agree with you, Dan. That was kind of a shocking about face from Apple. So what else did they announce? iOS 5? Anything exciting for you in the new iOS? You were really an Android person, Gina.
I'm pretty fully Android at this point.
I mean, you're surrounded.
It sounds like, yeah.
You too?
Yep.
Me too. So
I'm going to incense the trolls and say, oh, it looks like iOS 5 really caught up to Android.
Well, those notifications. Okay, now say this, you guys.
I'm ready now.
As Android users, doesn't that notification system look exactly like Android?
It looks similar, yes.
Very similar. The only difference is there's widgets in the notifications.
Right, that's true. That's true. I have one less argument for people when people ask why to use Android over iOS. It was often like it was notifications, voice input, and turn-by-turn directions. So now I have one less thing that I can say kind of differentiates the two platforms. I mean, listen, it's not a holy war, folks. I'm really not trying to incense the trolls. But no, it's great for iOS users who have this great experience. Except notifications are terrible, so it's going to be a long time in coming.
It was a big thing, and I think this was a little bit of a surprise. I think everybody thought that Apple would announce a partnership with Nuance and that they would have dictation everywhere, which is your second feature that you really like about Android phones, and they did not.
Right.
And there have been some rumors that perhaps they were going to, that this happens sometimes in Apple keynotes, last-minute poll, maybe they couldn't do the deal with Nuance. Nuance is notoriously tough to deal with, really tough negotiators. And some people thought, if Nuance got word or rumor that Apple was interested in doing this, they might have made it very difficult for Apple to agree without, buying the farm.
When they do this with Nuance, and I think it is when
I think they will do it,
it's going to be interesting because Nuance is a different religion than the Google approach to voice. So the Nuance approach, if memory serves, is that they're going to do it on the phone, which means it's going to be very fast, but they don't have giant Google server farm to help them with the processing. Whereas Google sends your voice back to the Googleplex, analyzes it, and then does shockingly good voice analysis because they're doing it at the Googleplex sent back to your phone. But it only works when you're online,
I was
and it's
gonna
a
say,
little bit slower.
Right. You need data, and it's slower. Right. You need a connection, and it's slower.
The interesting
That's
thing is the guy who founded Nuance is at Google. I think his name is Mike Cohen. He's the voice guy at Google. But he founded the Nuance he founded was a very different company from the Nuance.
Yeah.
Nuance today is really a holding company that took the name Nuance after they acquired Learn Out House Speed. They acquired all
T9, TJ.
Dragon. They acquired everybody, and then they wrapped it around the Nuance name, which they also acquired basically. So I don't know if it's the same technology or not. I'm not sure. It doesn't send it to the server on the iPhone. It doesn't. You don't have to be online for the dictation to work.
I don't know. What I know is that Nuance has a lot of products, maybe even all the products.
All their products are locally.
They don't do it in the cloud.
But now, you don't have a lot of processor, and more importantly, you don't have a lot of RAM. RAM is really important in voice recognition. So I don't know. I'm not sure.
So it may be a snappier response, but worse quality.
Right.
We'll see.
Right. And they didn't do it.
Right.
They also,
right. I guess this is all
it's
sort
all
of
moved.
speculation.
That would probably be the biggest thing, is that it doesn't exist. They also bought Siri, remember, which was a very interesting natural language app for the iPhone that allowed you to say, book me a table for 2 for Sunday night at Il Fornaio, and it would do it. You know, it would work. It would hook into OpenTable and other things. You could tell it all sorts of stuff. And they own it, but they didn't implement that either. That I believe that uses Nuance, as I remember. I talked to the Siri
I believe Siri just
designy.
did the analysis of the language once you'd already figured out what the person had said.
Right.
And they were using Nuance or just about anything to convert the voice.
Didn't
into
really
text.
matter.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Steve Jobs also, right after speaking at the Worldwide Developers Conference on Tuesday, went to the Cupertino City Council and pitched a spaceship. The new Apple building will house 12,000 people. Steve says there is not a straight piece of glass in the place. It's completely curved. It's a ring. Almost all the parking for tens of thousands of cars is underground. They're adding trees, not taking out trees. There'll be many, many more trees on the space. It's the old part of the old HP campus. And
It's the iPad of buildings.
it is the you have to say after, and I had to even bring this up, but after seeing Steve at the conference where he really looked frail, and by the end of it he was very tired, and you have to think that he's thinking of iOS 5, iCloud, Lion, and perhaps this building is his legacy. Now, this building won't be started until 2015, I think. I mean, it's a.
I think they want to break ground next year, but
maybe it's be
move
done
in
2015. Okay.
Yeah.
Break ground next year, done 2015. So that's, I mean, that's a monument to yourself, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I mean, his presentation of the city council really felt like a product announcement to me.
He did
I
it.
mean,
He did a keynote.
It's just habit at this point.
It is just habit. You know,
He
he
was
had
wearing
the
his
keynote with the
jeans and the
numbers
black
and the.
turtleneck.
I mean, it was like it had the same kind of cadence and build up, and everyone was just like, "Wow!" with stars in their eyes afterwards. It felt very much like a
cool.
product announcement.
It's pretty cool. Are you guys gamers at all?
No.
Very
from time to
casually,
time.
very
a little
casually.
E3 stuff, and in just a second we'll talk about the Nintendo Wii U. Wii U. But first, a word from our friends at FreshBooks. FreshBooks.com is the place to go if you do invoicing. Anybody who's you probably still do invoicing, don't you?
Occasionally.
Yeah. Anybody who's been a freelancer or self-employed knows about the pain, the horror that comes on the 31st day of the month when you have to make invoices and get paid for all your clients. I was doing it and hated it until Amber MacArthur, and this was, I think, 2004, told me about a company called FreshBooks. In fact, I remember when I first saw the site, I said, "Wow, this is like the first Web 2.0 site I've seen." It had, the Web 2.0 look, the big buttons, the big text, very friendly, very readable, and you know what? Here we are some years later, and I think 2 million people since have signed up for FreshBooks. It changed my life. Their tagline, "Love invoicing." That sounds, yeah, right. I will never. No, you might. Seriously. For instance, they have, if you do time and hours, they have a tracker on the web or on the iPhone that automatically puts those hours and numbers right into the invoice. If you use multiple currencies, I had to bill Canada. It'll automatically do the currencies. Thing I like is you can have automatic invoicing. If it's the same invoice every month, it'll do it automatically for you. Your clients can even set up auto pay. Now that's how you get paid quickly. They can press a button on the email that says pay by credit card or one of 11 different online payment services like PayPal and Authorize.net. If your clients are the other kind of client, the ones that take a while to pay, automated late payment reminders will make sure that they don't forget about you. Some clients even still want paper invoices. They'll do that too for an additional fee. They'll print, stamp, and mail your invoice. It really is a great service. And here's the best part: free for the first 3 clients. Many of us, that's all you need. It's not a temporary, one-time only. It's free for the first 3 clients, period. I think you're going to love it. I did it. I've done it, and I love it, and I highly recommend it, and I encourage you to try it. And, yes, they're still giving birthday cakes every week to new users. So if you sign up today, you'll be in the drawing for a free birthday cake, even if it's not your birthday. It's a good birthday cake. We had one. You weren't here. See, this is why you should be here.
This is why I clearly should be here.
Yeah.
The cake isn't a lie?
The cake, in this case. See, you are a gamer. Is not a lie.
Sorry, you just kind of handed that one.
I gave you that one. Dan Shapiro is here. He's a newly minted Googler. Now, I know we can't ask you questions about Google and stuff, but can I ask you personal questions like, how was that?
Yeah.
Was it kind of
exciting.
cool to walk in the door and say, here I am?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I'll tell you one thing. You hear all the stuff about the Google benefits and the food, and it's all true.
You're going to get real fat.
What's it really like, Dan?
Amazing.
What's it
Really?
like?
Actually,
Do you ever leave?
not only is the food amazing, they color code it. So there's green for, healthy, good for you. Yellow, proceed with caution. And red for taste really, really good. No, for, enjoy in moderation.
That's actually good that they do that, because they probably initially had a problem with people, the Google 50.
Right?
Right. That's right. I just got a head start on that, so I was set when I
Very
showed up.
tempting, it must be. I saw pictures of the Googleplex of them making cheeseburgers with Krispy Kreme donut buns. That's probably red.
That's red.
I'm thinking that's bright
That's
red.
like, let's kill our employees.
Yeah, that's like, we'll do that for the ones
the
we want to
medics
get
on site
rid
as
of.
well.
Yeah. So it must be fun, though. I know that what you love to do is create businesses.
That is a lot of fun. It's also really amazing to go see how a phenomenal business runs at scale and be a part of that.
Well, here's something you can learn, isn't it? Because the real challenge is to have, what do they have, 40,000, 50,000 employees and still feel like a startup, still feel nimble, feel like things are happening. Hey, come on in. Kevin Marks is here.
Hey, Kevin.
Sitting in for Ben Ha. You could take that mic right there. Now it's feeling like This Week in Google all of a sudden.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I like that.
Yeah.
This week's taken over.
Yeah. Kevin was also at Food Camp. In fact, he's wearing this year's, Kevin Marks is modeling this year's Food Camp shirt.
And badge.
Oh, that's the old one?
Kevin's an older
they
timer than
rotate.
I am.
Scooch in.
rotate.
Get right on that mic. You have to talk right into it.
Okay.
But they're green again this year. So it looked exactly the same.
This is slightly darker, but yes.
Oh, see, that's how you know a guy's a Food
pros
Camp.
know.
Yeah. Oh, well, as you probably could tell if you were a Food Camp regular like me, this is the 2004. Hey, can we get water all around? And maybe even a coffee would be nice. Thank you, John.
How many hours of sleep did you get last night?
Not much. You don't sleep at Food Camp. That's a mistake. You don't go to sleep.
when you're dead.
Yeah,
Or have been killed by werewolves.
Well,
Yeah.
right. I was dead, unfortunately, many times last night.
You don't sleep at Food Camp because there's so many amazing people, and there's you cannot get to everybody. They make it so you can't. There's no way you can get to all the sessions. There are at least
8 at a time?
something like that.
10?
More than that, 10. Yeah, there's quite a few simultaneous sessions, so it's impossible to get to every session. And one of the things people do at Food Camp, besides sessions and playing werewolf, is talking a lot to different people. And you actively look for new people that, if you're smart, you look for new, which is why my excuse for not talking to you more, Gina. I should have talked to you more, but
Well, yeah, we actually didn't. Well,
No.
we hung out a bit, but not as much
I
as-
really make an effort to try to meet new people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I did too.
So much fun. So, Kevin, it's good to see you. Kevin Marks is at Salesforce.com now. New job for Kevin. Kevin Marks, is it Kevin? No, it says KevinMarks.com on here, but you don't. That's not your blog. It's a Pigany.
But Kevin's worked at like all of the big four? No. Not.
Who's the big
So Apple, Google.
The Horsemen.
You haven't worked at
Facebook, you haven't done
Facebook.
yet.
worked at Facebook.
Okay. And who's the other one?
Amazon. Have you worked at
Amazon.
Okay.
So 3 of the 4. So you're 75%?
No, I haven't worked at
Oh, yeah. Okay, so
Just
50%.
nothing
Okay.
Google, but-
Are you working on cloud stuff at Salesforce?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cloud standards. Working on getting the stuff that Salesforce building connected to the open standards in the cloud. So the activity stream stuff. And so on.
And Salesforce is very much involved in big data. We were talking earlier about big data and how interested. That seemed to be one of the threads of conversation that was going on there. what do you do with data? How do you learn from it? I was talking to Andreas, is it Weigand, who's a professor at Stanford and a big data whiz. And he was eating a hot dog at the time. And I said, so what do you do with big data? Do you ask it questions and it gives you an answer? And he goes, I said, oh, it's iterative. Yes, it's iterative. It goes, you ask a question, it gives you an answer. You ask another question, it gives you an answer. And you iterate. Ah, I got it. So this is good. You know, he's a good enough lecturer that actually could learn with sign language. For those of you listening, the sign was he made his finger go around in circles. Yeah. But we're going to get him on, actually. It was very interesting. I asked him to be here, but he couldn't. But we'll get him on at a later
There's
time.
another conference this week, the Economist put on in Santa Clara that was all about that.
Yeah, you were at that as well. Yeah. In fact, you did a session called, which I thought was fascinating, Cloud versus Pocket.
Right. So well, the challenge is we are simultaneously putting all our information in the cloud and having it there for reference. You know, Steve Jobs said the truth is in the cloud, but we're also...
Did he actually say the truth is in the cloud? That's a little scary.
But at the same time, we're carrying around more and more stuff with us all the time. We have more local storage.
Right.
And that, you know, it used to be 1,000 songs in your pocket. Now it's 25,000 songs in the cloud.
Right.
So the question becomes which should be master, which should be right, and the trend has been the cloud has the right answer, and the stuff in your pocket is just a local cache for it, that's
Apple's vision, I think.
But it's all, you know, that's the way Google's built too. With Android, you get a new Android, all your contacts appear from the cloud automatically, and you don't really know when you save it, you know, where it is.
Apple did seem to be a little bit less focused on the cloud, a little bit more interested in local storage. They emphasized again and again that it will go up to the cloud, then come back down to your other devices.
Yes, that's true.
Responding, I think, to a concern some people, I don't share it, but some people have that, oh, if my stuff's in the cloud, is it safe? I want a copy. I want a local copy of it as well.
There is value in having, and then it works offline. So that's, you know, Apple showed off their docs integration with the cloud, which means that you can have edit histories and have old versions, and those get persisted, but it's still only for you. It's not collaborative editing like Google. The presumption is you edit and then a copy will be saved.
Right.
So it's more like source code control than it is like that. So that is, you know, one of the models. Sort of the but one of the problems we've got is the presumption that that you have two classes of device now. You have servers and you have clients again. We're back to that model. And as we start engineering stuff for the net, there is a danger that we build things with this very split view of things.
It's an old view and an incorrect, or a view we don't want to carry with us.
Well, it's weird in that I had this when I was trying to a couple of years ago I went to the W3C thing, was talking about the social standards, was talking about OAuth, and talking to Tim Berners-Lee about that. He said, why do you need this? Why do you need one server to give permission to another server? Can't you just run something locally that talks to them? And the answer is no, you can't really anymore, because the thing locally hasn't got a persistent IP address, so the remote thing can't call back to you. You have to poke out and establish a connection first.
It has to be pull every time.
And if you think about, you know, what Tim Berners-Lee was able to do with the machine he had, that was because it was globally routable, and anyone can connect to it and get stuff from it. So that there's a tension there, which is quite a subtle one in our engineering thinking, which is that we tend to think, oh, there are server-to-server protocols, and then there are all the clients that talk to the edges. And you are either writing something on the server or you're writing something on the client. I think you have that with ThinkUp to some extent, because you have to host it on a server.
Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see sort of some of the developments around that. So there's a thing called the Locker Project. I don't know if you've seen that.
No.
The Locker Project, it's by Jeremy Miller and some others. Jeremy Miller was inventor of Jabber. And the idea is to have your own information stored on your own device and routed around there rather than stored on a server. But it doesn't do it doesn't rely on a central database to connect things. It uses a distributed hash table so that you can discover other people without there being a central service to look them up in. So you can send messages across the edges that way. And that was one of these interesting pieces that's trying to move this the other way. And the other thing that we touched a bit on there was the idea of we're starting to use, if you look at the sort of Node.js and the way that's come through, people are starting to write server software in JavaScript and client software in JavaScript. We're using the same data structures on both sides, not from the same code, and we're just migrating bits and pieces back and forth as needed. And so it suddenly becomes straightforward to package up a bit of information and some code and send it to somewhere else to process and bring it back again. So there's a bunch of these trends that are sort of happening together, and I think we may be due a swing back to more stuff at the edges again.
From the point of view of a user, because I mean, really, this is kind of inside baseball talk from the developer point of view. Sure. What it looks like from the point of view of the developer. What is it the user wants? And now, and by the way, I distinguish the user, not enterprise, not businesses, but now with iCloud and with Google, we're all using the cloud as end users. What is it? What does the end user want? What are they? What are?
Well, that's
what should it look like to us?
What it looks like to us is, we get to share things with each other without having to post them to the large service. That's the if you've got an edge-driven vision.
That's what Apple's saying.
Apple's saying they can set up their own large service. Yeah.
So we want to. And this was a great conversation because we really were trying to figure out. Well, what do we want?
Yes.
How should it be done?
I mean, Apple sells really shiny devices with big hard drives. So they have an interest in making sure that you have a local copy. But I think there's a really good user. I mean, users benefit from federated, distributed, decentralized data stores. It means that they can get to their data when they're offline. They can get their data when that service is down. They can share, and they actually have the bits on them. I mean, I feel better about that. But
we talked a little bit about federation. The notion that you could have multiple servers that talk to each other,
right? And
that in some way that do they federate to form a single? Or it looks like a single data store, or are there conversations going in between?
There are conversations going. It depends which particular
how you do
system
it.
You're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah. If you look at the approaches to try and build federated social networks,
StatusNet, which is the old Identica, which is Evan Prodromo's project.
I mean, this is how the web works, right? We're all just a node on the network.
The web is federated,
right?
Email is federated.
Yeah, email's federated. Usenet's federated. News groups.
So
BitTorrent.
Yeah, BitTorrent. Is it federated?
I don't know.
Yeah. We all have our parts of our copy or copy.
Yeah, Bitcoin.
Bitcoin's federated. We're going to talk about Bitcoin.
BitTorrent has moved from needing a tracker to not needing a tracker. That's the other thing.
Right.
You just need the file, and it'll discover other users with distributed hash tables too.
Yeah, that was a good move actually. That was a very interesting move. We're talking about the news of the week, but also throwing in some Foo Camp stuff too, which is a lot of fun. In some ways, I think Foo Camp should be the news of the week. Story we missed because we were incognito at Foo Camp. Spain arrested 3 anonymous members for the Sony hacks and the bank hacks. 3 people being suspected of being involved against in attacks against Sony, Spanish banks, BBVA and Bankia, Italian energy company Enel, and the governments of Egypt, Algeria, Libya, Iran, Chile, Colombia, and New Zealand. These guys have been busy. Have been arrested in Spain. All 3 claimed the police claimed were the leadership of Anonymous in Spain. I don't know how you would know that.
I didn't think they had a leadership.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that means. I don't even know. Yeah. The individuals are accused of performing and organizing large DDoS attacks. They also were claimed to have attacked the websites of Spain's Central Electoral Board on May 18th. That's where you get in trouble, by the way. We've learned. Don't attack. I was talking to Rasmus Lerdorf, the creator of PHP, and he talked about how he got in just the slightest. Oh, we're going to fix the mic there for you, Kevin. Just the slightest bit of trouble. When he was in Australia, he was in Tasmania doing a talk, and he was demonstrating cross-site scripting, and it happened to be that one of the government websites in Tasmania was vulnerable to a pretty good cross-site scripting hack. So he just demonstrated it.
It's just a demo.
He was arrested. And he found out, in fact, that, well, first of all, he was arrested, and everybody was up in arms until the Hobart police in Tasmania said, we're going to cut off internet access to the conference, at which point all the conferees said, Rasmus, you suck! And then, go, take him, we don't want him. And it turns out it's a 10-year, could be 10 years in prison. And Rasmus, he says, I don't know how I got out, but I managed to get out.
Wow.
He says, I can't go back, though.
Wow.
So don't, he said, the funniest thing is that he's trying to describe to them it's a cross-site scripting hack, which in fact doesn't in any way affect the server, the computer it's running on. It's a way of getting to somebody else's computer by on a cross-site scripting. And he said, they were asking me, should we format our computers now? Have you breached our security? Are we? What should we do now? He said, no, you don't understand. I did nothing. I did nothing. Anyway, so that's interesting. I don't know if these guys are from Anonymous. This would be kind of a shock. It seemed like Anonymous pretty much had covered their tracks and knew.
Well,
what
the
they
thing
were
about
doing.
Anonymous, right, is that it's a lot of
decentralized.
Yes.
Who is it?
It's a lot of people,
Right?
And people are individually quite silly sometimes. So it doesn't surprise me at all that there were some subset of Anonymous, who
Maybe
didn't
not
cover
even
their
in
tracks
Anonymous,
well,
who claimed
to be in, or they
were in
just
chat
or they
room.
just messed up, right? They bragged somewhere, or didn't use Tor properly. There's lots of ways to not do a good job of being anonymous.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
It could have just frankly been a couple of guys who were using that LOIC tool, LOIC tool, and got caught. They didn't protect themselves well enough or whatever. And of course, the police are going to say, "We have the leaders. We have arrested the leaders." By the way, anonymous ops vow revenge. So
they already took the Spanish police offline, I think.
okie dokie.
So it begins.
It's interesting. I mean, it's actually a little bit scary. I mean, law enforcement has to be a little nervous about the whole idea that
They're hardening websites.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal is reporting anonymous hackers claim retaliatory attack on Spain police.
Wow. Didn't take long. E3 happened this week. We had E3 coverage. I hope you watched it. If you didn't, it's on our TWiT specials feed. Brian Brushwood and I and Glenn Rubenstein were at E3 on Tuesday. It's always it's a really loud, garish, sexy conference. It's still I think it's the last technology conference where they have women in scantily clothed women, and not actually just women, but
Awesome.
men. I mean, there are guys, Conan the Barbarian outfits.
Don't try and make this like,
No, it's sexy women. Okay, it's sexy
nasty.
women.
It's straight up sexist.
It's pure
It's straight up
sexism.
anti-women.
It isn't equal. No, I have to admit. And I always, it's
Thank
just.
you, Dan.
Thank you. You're right, Dan. What am I saying? I lost
Sorry,
my
Leo.
head briefly.
There's that one shirtless guy.
There was a shirtless guy. Okay, I saw him. He wasn't so good looking, but there was.
Really, it was Leo.
It was me. I took off my shirt. Actually, there's a picture somewhere of Brian Brushwood and me. We saw Duke Nukem Forever. It exists. It's going to be out next week. Holy cow. You see, you guys are looking at me like blank, but that's exciting.
It's been a little while in the making.
A little bit. You got the picture? All right, the chat room has pulled up the picture. So at the Duke Nukem Forever booth, they have... apparently there's a scene in the game where Duke sits in a throne surrounded by two schoolgirls, and so they had a throne with adult women dressed as schoolgirls in the plaid skirts and the whole
Classy.
thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, classy.
And imaginative.
Well, I thought, I'm going to sit in the throne, but I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to have Brian sit in my lap.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
So that made it okay, right?
The women look amused.
They were puzzled.
And they look like they're trying to avoid being stabbed by Brian's hair.
Yeah, they were puzzled. We had a good time. It was it was a lot of fun. I think the big announcement at E3 this year was Nintendo's Wii U, which is a.
Do you have to pronounce it that way?
Yeah.
Is that the phonetic?
Well, if you let me put it this way: if you're the kind of person that's pronounced Wii,
then you have to pronounce.
Then
it.
you have to say Wii U. It's a strange name. WII space capital U. It is a new. It will be out next year. We don't have a price announced for it. It is a new, successor to the Nintendo Wii, high def finally, which is good, and a little bit more aimed at the hardcore gamer. But the thing that was interesting is it has an iPad-looking device with an accelerometer and a gyroscope and game controls on it, and a full screen, touch screen, that you use as a controller in addition to your Wiimotes and your nunchucks.
Something that wasn't totally clear to me. Was that thing the Wii U, or was that the controller?
No, the Wii U is a whole new game machine.
Okay,
but
so
the
it's
controller comes with it.
A box with an iPad-like controller.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's buttons plus touch screen?
And gyroscope and, and positioning.
Gotcha.
So you could walk around like that, or you could have it like a DS experience where this is a controller that you touch, or there's a map there as you wander in a dungeon. It actually was kind of cool for multiplayer because now we don't know how much these are going to cost, but if each person has one of these, they all have their individual screen, and then there's the big game on top on the big screen. It was interesting. Sony also announced a new product. They call it the Vita. It's basically the successor to the PlayStation Portable. And I had to wonder, is there a market for this? Now that we all have smartphones that we can play games with, does anybody really want to buy a portable gaming thing?
Dedicated
The
gaming
hardcore
thing?
gamers, right?
Maybe.
Just like real photographers get something
It's
other
like the
than their
DSLR of gaming devices, portable gaming devices.
I have
$250.
a one bump in my pocket rule.
Yeah.
The phone is the only bump I allow in my pocket.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything.
I gave it to you.
I'm not going to say anything at all. I apologize for even thinking it. But I have a feeling I'm not alone, that's all. All right, we're going to take a little break. Dan Shapiro is here. Kevin Marks has joined us. It's great to have you, Kevin Marks. How's Salesforce been? Is it fun?
It's great fun, yeah.
There were some interesting Salesforce people there, including JP.
Yes.
Who is, I tried to get
Was
here.
he Salesforce?
Yeah, JP Salesforce.
I killed him like 3 times.
We're going to explain we have to explain Werewolf for people who don't know anything about it. Kevin, you played Werewolf too.
I not last night, the night before I played a little bit.
Yeah, I played with you. I think I did. There were a number of Brits. You know who I
like
met?
playing with Brits. They're very.
You know the husband and wife.
Logical. Simon and
I can't remember his wife's name.
Natalie.
Yeah.
You know their story? They founded a startup called Lanyard, which is very cool.
Lanyard is awesome.
Great company.
Yeah. Lanyrd. It's there's no A in Lanyard. There's only one A in Lanyard. But the story was they were traveling around the world on their honeymoon, and they got to Morocco, and they were kind of not feeling well, and it was Ramadan, so they couldn't go. And they were kind of in an area where they couldn't go out to eat, so they had to rent an apartment, and they were in this apartment not feeling too well for 3-4 weeks. So he's a Ruby on Rails programmer. She's a UX person. So they wrote Lanyard on their honeymoon.
I didn't realize that was them. I'd heard that story.
It's a great story. We're going to get them on one of our shows. They were charming.
Oh, they're adorable.
Wonderful couple. And they've got this great startup. I think they just closed a round of financing pretty recently. Oh, no, wait a minute. No. This is what happened. So they get into Y Combinator. They write Lanyard, and then they get into Y Combinator. So they move out here, and they go through the Y Combinator thing, and then I think they got funding. It's just it's one of those wild stories that shows you, in some ways, it's very inspiring that just a couple of people who have some skills and a good idea, and they're stuck in the house for a while.
And on their honeymoon, thinking about conferences.
Well, that's a little sick, but
we're not workaholics or anything.
It's just, and they were
As a
adorable.
community.
And playing Werewolf was fun with them because they would kill each other, and that was always fun.
Oh, there was a great moment where somebody said, "Ask your husband if he's the werewolf," and she stares deep into his eyes and says, "Are you a werewolf?"
Very intense
and he says,
moment.
"I'm not a werewolf." And she looks at everybody else and says, "I can't vouch for that."
Kill him!
That was the end.
And she had a little thing. She said, "Now, if he giggles when I do this, are you a werewolf?" and she does her eyebrows, and he giggled, so we had to kill him. We had no choice.
Ironically, he wasn't.
Yeah. It was kind of sad, actually. They ended up kind of at each other's throats, and I don't know how that marriage is going to go. But anyway,
we wish them the best.
No, we're just kidding. They were really, really sweet. So let's take a break. We're going to move on. We have a great cast of characters here with us, and we're going to wrap up pretty soon because we've got to get you to the airport.
Yeah, I'm not too worried. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get you to the airport. And we've got a lot of visitors in studio, which is a lot of fun. And we've got Kevin Marks, and we've got Dan Shapiro. Gina's never been to the cottage, so it's just really fun.
I know, it's fantastic. I just keep kind of gazing around like this is where all the magic happens. I only get to see you from my office in San Diego.
I'm glad you came now because, we're probably you won't get another chance to see it. It'll be dismantled.
Next time it'll be the brick house. I'm excited.
You'll like the brick house, I think.
And this cottage is adorable.
It
really
is a
really
cottage, isn't it?
It really is.
It is very
Picket
cottage.
fence, roses out front.
Old push-button lights.
Yeah. We could be in, I don't know, we could be in the UK. We could be.
And I love that it's lined with programming books.
Yes.
And
all
filled
O'Reilly books.
gadgets.
They're all my personal, this is my personal, my wife, the reason actually basically we're here is that my wife threw my programming books out of the house. And I followed. She said, "You can't have those books on the shelf anymore. They're confusing. What is this Python? I keep seeing a snake. I don't know." So this show brought to you by our friends at Audible.com. If you are not yet listening to audiobooks, what the heck? Get going. Go on over there to Audible.com/TWiT2. for your chance to get 2 free books. 2, not just 1. 2 free books. And I can tell you what the first one should be. This is very exciting. Paul Thurrott was referring to this. In fact, Paul wanted to make it his pick on Windows Weekly on Thursday. I said, you can't, because we're gonna talk about it. They have done Stanislaw Lem's Solaris, a brand new recording which just came out just a few days ago of Solaris. They call it the definitive edition, one of the great works of science fiction. You may remember the movie. Actually, there were 2 movies. There was a Steven Soderbergh version of it, and then there's a Russian movie, which is on Netflix, by the way. This is the 50th anniversary of the publication of Solaris, and they've commissioned a brand new translation for the first time ever from Polish to English, and it's narrated by. Let's see if Gina gets her street creds here. I'll play you a little segment.
Ooh,
you tell me who this is.
At 1900 hours ship's time, I climbed down the metal ladder past the bays on either side.
Alessandro Giuliani, do you know that name?
Inside, there was just enough room to raise my elbows. After I attached
Battlestar Galactica, that ring a bell?
the side of the capsule, my space
It's a little echoey the way I'm playing it right here, so I apologize for that. So you may not be able to hear.
Or rather hung suspended in a bed of air, all of one piece with my metal shell.
Now she's squeeing.
I love him. He was one of my favorites.
Which one is he?
He was the with the curls, the dark curls. I'm trying to remember his character name.
Alessandro Giuliani.
Felix Gaeta.
Yeah.
I heard the 8 times repeated whir.
Yeah, he was great.
He had a great webisode. I'm so
Did he
sad.
really?
Didn't get. Yeah. One of the webisodes kind of really dives into his personal life.
Felix.
He's one of my people. I love him.
Yeah. So this is the story in brief is Chris Kelvin arrives on an orbiting research station to study the remarkable ocean covering the planet's surface, but his fellow scientists appear to be losing their grip on reality. I always like that. Plagued by physical manifestations of their repressed memories. When Kelvin's long-dead wife suddenly appears, he's forced to confront the pain of his past while living in a future that never was. Can Kelvin unlock the mystery of Solaris? Does he even want to? Find out! Listen to the book. The definitive edition, brand new translation, brand new recording. You're going to love this.
This sounds great.
Yeah, I love Audible. So you can get it right now for free. Go to audible.com/twit2. That's just first. You get 2 books, by the way.
I just want to hear Lieutenant Gaida's voice.
I know. I want to hear more
Can I do that
Gaida.
right now?
Huh?
Are we allowed?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Are we allowed?
I love it.
Are you a listener?
I think that's the first time that we've had a host sign up for Audible because of right on the spot. I love it. So if you go to audible.com/twit2, you're signing up for the Platinum account. That's 2 books a month. That's what I do, and it's kind of it's a subscription. Your first month's free though, and you get 2 books, and you can cancel at any time. And those books you can keep; they don't go away. In fact, that's one of the things I really love about Audible is that you have a library. I don't know how many books in my library. I think 500 books now. I've been an Audible subscriber for more than a decade. So let's see if I go to all the books. So they're always in your library. If you have the iPhone app or the Android app, that library is on the phone, and you can look at any book, listen to any book that you've ever listened to. So it really is, what's wonderful about Audible is it really is a library, your audiobook library. And as I listen to more and more audiobooks, I feel like I've rediscovered reading thanks to Audible. It's just a really great service. I want you to try it free for 2 books, absolutely free. Just go to audible.com/twit2. If you're already an Audible member, they've got a summer listening sale going on right now, up to half off on many, many books. And yeah, that would be a good one to start with. Solaris, Stanislaw Lem, read by Lieutenant Gaida. Let's see. Thank you, Audible, for your support. What else was I going to talk about?
Our fearless moderator from last night just arrived.
Who's our fearless moderator?
Quinn from
Quinn, come on in here. Get a seat for Quinn. How did she even find us?
Quinn's was sitting there very quietly.
Quinn was pushing absinthe,
the dead of night,
and some lemon thing that was made out of rubbing alcohol, I believe. Can we get a seat for Quinn? All right, my people are scrambling right now. It's so nice to see you. I didn't. How did you find?
I didn't know if you wanted to be outed, so I didn't call you out.
You. So you'll have to share a mic with Dan. I hope you don't mind. Get in close there. And what time do you need to go to the airport?
Yeah, I should probably take off soon.
Quinn can take. Well, we're going to wrap up in a second.
Okay. Yeah.
So Quinn, what do you do? Tell us. Introduce yourself.
Well, I'm a journalist, and I also.
You'll have to really lean in on that sucker.
I'm a journalist, and I also just finished up teaching at ITP on physiology and identity, a class called The Laboratory of the Self.
Wow. What does that mean?
Well, I look at the physiological part of human identity and body augmentation in the past through history and then prospectively in the future.
When you say augmentation, does that mean like piercings and tattoos, or does it mean like horns? I mean, what is...
It's actually when I started looking at it, I was looking at functional body modification, and
functional as opposed to decorative.
I mean, decorative ends up being a really important part of human history, but the functional was my main interest.
So what would that be?
Well, you see, this is the thing: is I started out looking at things like the magnetic implant to give yourself a sixth sense for electromagnetic fields, but when I started,
Quinn told us a funny story about that.
Which story?
Wasn't it you who were...
Oh, the TMS.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was me. That wasn't the magnetic implant.
That was another thing with your brain and magnets.
Yes, it was another thing with my brain and
So people actually put magnets in their brains to give them sixth sense?
No, the magnet goes in your finger.
And does it help?
And when you say people...
Who? You?
Yes.
Do you have sixth sense?
Not anymore.
You took the magnet out?
Yes.
So did it help? Did it work?
So it did work.
What?
It did work. It's a sense for things like spinning motors and live cords.
Oh, okay. Something magnetic.
Yes. So it
that
gives
makes
off
sense.
An EM field.
It makes you magnetic.
It makes you able to sense the magnetic field.
Even
also, like the party trick is you can also pick up magnets.
So you can feel the pressure then on your fingertips, basically.
It's not really pressure. It's a kind of it's actually a very, very profound oscillation. And it feels
I didn't know
very
people
direct
did this.
There's no skin in the way. Well, I usually recommend that people don't do it because the magnet failed. It's in a bioneutral sheath.
Oh.
That sheath breached. My body attacked the magnet. When it was but when it was removed by a hand surgeon so that I could get an MRI.
Ever?
Well, see, there was a fast way to get it out and a slow way, and I went for the slow way. Although I did point out that no one was ever going to sneak up on me with an MRI machine.
That's a problem I worry about constantly.
And I had a sense for that sort of thing.
Wow.
Yes.
So what other...
I want to sense profound oscillation. That sounds cool.
But yeah, I kind of started out looking there, but in the end, I found that the most profound, from a society point of view, modifications tended to be things like vaccination and birth control.
Oh, well, that makes sense, yeah.
And really, we live in a world that birth control had a great deal of effect on. And then looking back further, I was kind of inquiring about how the new generation of drugs might affect society, and the best model I could find for it was the introduction of coffee into Europe. And it had tremendous effects, the coffee house culture in Europe, and was tied to the story of the Enlightenment. And
that's very interesting.
It was a very exciting body.
I guess that is any kind of stimulant or anything like that.
It's certainly anything that you take to change the function of your body and the way you see yourself.
You're a journalist. Who do you write for?
I'm a freelancer. I've written a great deal for Wired. I most recently wrote a piece in The Atlantic on a virtualized biotech company.
Oh, neat. I love
Ferrokin, which is bringing a drug to market for under $30 million with 6 employees.
Wow. Generally considered to be impossible.
Yes, but the guy who's doing it is doing it, and it's working. And he's doing it by creating a network of vendors and freelancers and smaller companies that he uses to outsource each part of the drug development process.
Quinn, you're also is a photographer, but didn't have a camera with you.
I didn't.
I was impressed that you were willing to kind of not do that.
I try to demediate my foo experience as much as possible. I think I tweeted like twice.
That's more than... Did I tweet? Yes. I did not.
I tweeted once to tell Baratunde to switch a session time, though.
Yes, and he tweeted that he was switching a session time.
Yeah. So that was a
And you made it worthwhile because you brought absinthe.
I did. I also brought combustible lemons.
Yeah, from Aperture Science.
Yes, well...
It's very exciting. But where was the potato?
I can't believe I missed this.
That's that's the problem with food camp.
FOMO.
There's so many things going on.
Missing out.
Yeah. And you write every month for Maximum PC.
I do.
Yeah.
I write on intellectual property law and digital rights.
So what was the highlight of food camp? Actually, we should do that, and then we'll wrap up. And we could describe a little bit of werewolf too, if we have time. But what was the highlight of food camp for you this year?
Actually, like my big takeaway from food camp is that there's so many fascinating things that are waiting for better batteries.
Oh God, is that true?
There's so many mobile applications. There's even there's even some fascinating kind of cyborgian stuff I saw there. But everything's just halted right now, waiting for better batteries.
None of it can get through a day.
Yes. And really, if you are implanting something, you kind of need it to get through longer than a day.
Longer than a day would be nice. I think we have to work on having ATP power devices.
Glucose-powered fuel cells are one of the things people are looking into.
Yeah, because that's the powerhouse of the blood of the biosystem.
Have you seen the robots that eat meat?
Because talking to the mic, if you just lean in.
The robots that eat meat.
The robots that eat meat.
So somebody's recently built clocks and tables that are carnivorous.
Okay, that's weird.
It's not good, though, Dan. I don't know why you would celebrate such a thing.
No, I'm not celebrating. It's peculiar. But no, these are actual machines that run off of biomass.
So do they actually get energy from the meat?
So in one case,
they just eat it and spit it out. What?
It's a clock, and flies are attracted to it.
Oh, I would like that.
They stick to it.
It's a Venus fly clock.
Exactly. They fall into a fuel cell where they are digested, which powers the clock.
I want that.
I do too. I want it badly. The problem is children fall into it too. It's the only negative.
You have to put it up higher on the wall.
It's a really long time. It just takes one.
Dan, what was the highlight for you?
So there was a couple things that just kind of clicked together for me in sort of one like beautiful aha. We talked about privacy earlier. We talked about big data. And I suddenly had this sort of like, I see the problem, which is right now our lives are becoming more public and the government is still very private. And in fact, we want it to go the other direction.
We want the government to be public.
Yes. The whole big data thing, the whole privacy thing, these are aspects of the same thing, which is we want the curve to go, we control our data, but we have access to the workings of our government and our companies. And in fact, right now, it's the other way. And so there's in many different ways, aspects, and directions, there's a movement to go reverse that trend.
Yes.
And push it so that we know the people who are running our lives and they don't know about ours.
In fact, that was one of the things at that privacy session that we went to that somebody said that I thought was quite true, is that we don't maybe mind if businesses have our information. What we really don't want is the government to know that information. And they said, what did they say? What was the line? Why the government shouldn't have our information?
Oh, right, because they have a monopoly on violence.
They have a monopoly on violence. Kevin Marks, I appreciate your coming. It's kind of the end of the show, but what was your highlight for food camp?
There were a couple. One was a very interesting session that Kathy Sierra put together on gamification and why it's evil.
Wow, that's interesting, because last year Jane McGonigal was all about gamification of everything, right?
Yes, but the problem is it's now been through, passed on from hand to hand and lost all the Janeness from it.
Right.
And what we have instead is people just adding leaderboards and badges and nonsense, and basically doing little Skinner boxes instead of actual games.
As anybody who's played Farmville, as anybody who's been addicted to Farmville as I have, or We Rule, I agree. Gamification is an evil, and Zynga is evil because they suck you in, don't they?
Right, but it's also become suddenly it's the trend for marketers to do. So so every site is getting badges, and you get a badge for going to our website, and suddenly it's all turning into nonsense. So that she had some very good arguments for that. And the thing that she was particularly worried about was people talking about gamification for education and doing this because it has this initial increase in affect, and then it drops off to lower than before.
Oh, is that true?
So this is the actual research. If you start giving people extrinsic rewards for doing things that are actually challenging, not trivial,
right?
Then the reaction is that they value the task itself less and do less of it. And to some extent, education already has that problem with GPA chasing and things.
Last year, Jane did a session on using games for education on Teaching people to look left before they cross the street.
And she actually launched a company based on a 5-minute talk that she did at Food Camp last year. I don't know if you saw this.
Oh, I
but
didn't.
They're now public and hiring based on an experience she had with recovering from, I believe, a traumatic brain injury.
That's right.
Create a game around it. I think you were there for
That's
her
right.
talk.
Yeah.
And that's now a company.
Concussion game.
Really, concussion game, yeah. And it helps her quite a bit.
Yeah.
So there is some learning possible.
Oh, the thing is, yes, there is some value here, and if you are actually a game designer, you can use those processes. But now people are like making sort of cargo cult versions of this, where they
That's
take
the problem.
the
They don't
trappings
get
of
it.
games,
Right.
And actually end up polluting, the sites and making things that aren't games either.
Right.
There's some wonderful studies in child psychology of I'm remembering this, so I might not have all the details perfect, but they took a group of children and they gave them crayons to color with, and then they paid one portion of the children like $1 for their drawings, and then brought them all in the next day and gave them crayons to color with. And the ones that had been having a great time yesterday coloring, colored again, and the ones that had gotten paid wouldn't do it again until they found out if they were going to get paid.
Oh, that's sad.
And now they weren't having any fun doing it.
Yeah. Well, guess what? Welcome to the world, kid. It's called work. We all do it. We all hate it. So take that.
I read about that research and
that's
external
very funny.
motivators versus internal motivators, and how external motivators can really ruin things.
There was
in a
some
way.
great research from an Israeli daycare along the same lines, that when they said, please come and pick up your kids on time, people failed to do so at some rate. And then when they said, we're going to charge you $10, the rate went way up.
Right.
I said, it's worth $10.
Yeah. Oh, if it's going to cost me, I'm going to do it. How about you, Gina? Anything that sticks to your memory from the last 3 days?
Yeah, my brain is still processing, but I think my overall takeaway is that we as geeks have sort of the power, a lot more power than we think that we have, and that the tools that we creates culture and influences culture, and that it's important to sort of imbue our ideas and our values into the tools that we create.
Right.
And that we just can't sort of make things and be like, oh, let's just see what happens. I think that we have to kind of use our power for good and be more aware of our power.
That's very
and
true.
I feel just very, very privileged to be alive at this time and to have the kind of access that we got at Food Camp, and have access to folks like all of you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you.
So there was one other session where we were talking about the problem of the Protect IP Act and what we can do about that.
Oh, let's talk about that, Kevin, because I wasn't at that session, but you talked to me about this morning, and I think it's very important. This is a call to action for everybody who watches this show.
Yes. Well, the problem is we haven't got a concrete call to action yet, but there is an act being put through Congress called Protect IP. I think you know some more about this too, right?
Yes. Actually, I've been working with and watching a little bit the Demand Progress campaign to try and stop Protect IP, which is the new name or the other name for COICA. It's interesting. Like one of these things gets out. It's given a name, and then it gets a bunch of bad press, and they change the name and continue to try and do the same. That Protect IP, COICA, it's all an internet blacklist. It's for me, one of the most chilling things about this is this is in the backdrop of these raids that have been done by ICE and DHS, alleging criminal copyright contributory criminal copyright infringement, which is not a law. And they're already doing these seizures based on something that not only isn't a law, but was rejected by Congress a few years ago. And they announced last year, they announced those raids from the Disney headquarters.
Yeah, isn't that
which
nice?
is kind of cheeky,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So
we know who's running the show, right?
COICA and Protect IP would expand those powers. They'd legitimize what's already going on, and they'd allow more domain seizures, and they'd allow the government to create a list of websites that you couldn't access in the U.S. And every ISP would be compelled to go get that list and block your access to those things. And there's no profound judicial review on what goes onto that list.
So basically, it's to protect big content companies, and they get to say, we don't like these guys.
Yeah.
Take them out.
Yeah.
And then ICE or other federal agencies, the DHS, will take them out, and we won't be able to get to them.
And it's really unclear where the edges are. Edge of those things are, and I think it really runs into a lot of First Amendment problems.
Yeah, it's clearly contrary to the internet. So the question is, how can we, as geeks, will understand this, make lawmakers understand it? Kevin Marks, you have some experience with this.
Well, it is a challenge. I mean, the problem is that the lawmakers. It's very easy for the Hollywood side to tell their story because that's their job. They're professional storytellers. They're good at creating narratives and getting glamorous people to present them well. Whereas from our side, that's not what we do. Most of us, we're sitting here just building things, and it's very hard to make common carriage sexy. This is an assault on the principle of common carriage, which is a very old principle of common law that says if I'm transporting something for you, I'm not responsible for the contents of it. So this is why we're able to build many of these websites that host stuff, because the liability is not passed on to the host. It's the person who put it up there who's liable. And there's another piece called Safe Harbor, which was part of the Copyright Act, which is why one of the reasons the US was able to build so many of these sites, and it was trickier in other countries.
Without which you could have no YouTube.
Right. Without this, you couldn't have YouTube. You couldn't have photograph hosting. You couldn't have things like that. And this isn't an assault on that principle. This is saying, okay, we are going to hold you liable for this, and we're going to take your entire business away because you're hosting, because somebody on your site uploaded something we don't like. And that is that's scary, and we need to fight back against that. Yeah. So if you've got some direct,
well, right now, like I said, most of this footwork is being done by demandprogress.org. But there's always like the most direct option, which is calling your representative, emailing, writing paper letters to your Congress critter and your senators and so on and so forth. And those things, especially if you take the time to do them, not just sign a petition, those numbers do build up, and they do listen to that. It's not the only thing they listen to, but it does make a difference.
Yeah.
I actually spent a summer back in high school as an intern in Congress, or in college, I think it was. And it's funny, we were talking earlier about Apple reversing their subscription stance.
Right.
And the one way Congress is like Apple is they do listen if enough people squawk. And so it's very true that if you call your local representative, call your local senator, the one who represents you,
or write paper mail. Again,
even
Quinn
better
sends
if
paper.
You can take the time to do paper, but phone calls are given a reasonable percentage. Email's kind of lowest on the totem pole.
Right.
But make the call. It takes a minute. Somebody answer the phone. There'll be a staffer. You say, "My name is so and so. I live in so and so." That's important, so they know you're a constituent. And I wanted to let the Congress member know X, Y, Z.
That's your assignment. Everybody who's listening, to call your member of Congress or write to them and say, you've got to oppose the Protect IP Act.
Tell them you're upset.
Yeah, say this is wrong. It's against, and Kevin had a great, little bit of great strategery with this, which is that every constituency has a reason not to like it. If you're a libertarian on the right, obviously government intervention is a bad idea. If you're if you're in the Christian Coalition, you wouldn't like it because, in fact, would impact churches as much as anybody else. So it's an anti-free speech.
It's an anti-free speech move, and that's one of those things that you should be able to build a broad coalition for that.
The double ARP.
The double ARP, I'm sure, want to continue to use the fastest.
See your grandkids' pictures
as older people join the net and connecting with their and seeing photo hosting and things like that. And you wouldn't be able to have a public photo hosting site under threat of this.
Flickr doesn't exist under this. Or PhotoBucket, which you know a little bit about, Dan Shapiro.
To my heart.
Since that's one of the... Was it a Flickr project originally?
No, PhotoBucket was an independent company.
It was independent.
Bought by Fox, and then
Fox bought it.
My previous company, Untitled, spun PhotoBucket out and merged, so I'm on the board.
Awesome. Dan Shapiro, thanks for being here. DanShapiro.com, QuinnNorton.com. Thank you for... We pulled you in and we put you on, and I appreciate it. It was very nice of you. Yeah, thank you. Kevin Marks from Salesforce.com. Is that okay? What would you like to...
Yeah, Salesforce.com, that's fine.
Yeah, might as well plug the employer.
Chatter.com is the place you can go to sign up for Chatter, which is Salesforce's in-company Twitter, if you like.
Oh, that's neat. And that's available to people who use Salesforce products?
It's available to anyone. You can sign up with a company email address and set it up inside your company.
And Gina, I want to thank you for missing your plane for us. Get the hell out of here.
Don't say that. Run. I got to get out of here.
No, OMG Chad is going to drive Gina to the airport. He drives very fast, but he's an excellent driver. Excellent driver.
Oh, good.
So we're going to get you out of here.
Get there alive.
Thank you, everybody, for being here, and we'll see you next week. Don't forget to buy a brick, bricks.twit.tv. We're getting close to the brick twit house. This may be one of the last few twits out of the old twit cottage, so I'm glad you could be here for that. I'm Leo Laporte. Thanks for joining us. Another twit is in the can. Yay!